The Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the pride of the known stars. It was a place where the voices of many civilizations gathered, where agreements shaped the future of thousands of worlds. On this day, however, the hall held a special tension. A new species had been invited to take a seat among the great powers. That species was humanity. The arrival of the human diplomat was unlike the usual entrances seen in the hall. Most ambassadors came with large processions, wearing symbols of ancient power or standing tall behind guards armed with ceremonial weapons. Humanity had chosen a different path. Their envoy, a man named Ryan, walked in with only a few aides. He wore no armor, no crown, no ceremonial robe. He carried only a simple translator device and the message of his people. The other delegates whispered to each other as Ryan entered. Some looked at the humans with curiosity. Others with suspicion. A few with open disdain. Humanity was young in the eyes of the assembly. They had risen quickly, spreading from their home world of Earth into nearby stars with determination and speed. Older species wondered if humans had grown too fast. Ryan, however, felt no fear. He had been chosen because he carried a steady calm that impressed even his rivals. His task was not to boast of humanity's power or speak of their struggles. His task was to show that humans could be trusted, that they could stand among ancient civilizations as equals. He walked toward the central podium, his steps slow and deliberate, his voice ready to speak words of peace. The hall quieted as the supreme speaker of the assembly raised a hand. Today, the speaker announced, "We welcome a voice from Earth. A young species has come, one that seeks a place within our council. May their words guide us toward understanding." Ryan stepped forward. His voice, carried through the translator, reached every corner of the vast chamber. "Honored delegates, I come not to demand but to share. Humanity has long dreamed of the stars. We have fought wars among ourselves, yet we have also built bridges after those wars. We have learned to grow, not by destroying what is different, but by seeking to understand. Today, we ask not for favors, but for trust. We ask not for dominance, but for friendship." For a moment, there was silence. Some nodded in approval. Others frowned, whispering again in private tones. Ryan's words were simple, but they carried a weight that touched even those who doubted humanity. The hall seemed ready to move forward into history. Then, in a blink, everything changed. From the crowd, a figure stepped forward. At first it seemed like a late arrival. No one questioned it until the figure raised an arm. A sharp flash of energy struck across the hall. In that instant, Ryan staggered. His aides cried out as the human diplomat fell to the floor. The assembly chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted, guards rushed forward, and alarms echoed across the hall. The attacker was seized within moments, but the damage had already been done. The human envoy lay still, his mission unfinished, his voice silenced before it could complete its first message. Shock rippled through the chamber. Never before had an assassination taken place in the sacred hall of the assembly. It was considered a place of safety, protected by the honor of all members. To strike within its walls was to insult not just one species, but the council itself. Yet as the initial shock faded, a troubling pattern emerged. Some delegates quickly began to downplay the act. "A tragic mistake," one said. "A rogue element," said another. A few even suggested that humanity should remain calm and not respond too strongly. They spoke of patience, of restraint, of maintaining order. But the humans in the chamber heard these words with disbelief. Their envoy had come unarmed, offering peace. He had been struck down before their eyes, and the assembly's first reaction was not outrage, but excuses. Among the aides who survived, whispers grew. They thought of Earth, of the billions who would soon hear of this betrayal. Humanity had always hoped for a place among the stars. Now they wondered what price would be demanded in return for such a place. Far away on Earth, messages were already racing home. The diplomats who remained alive sent their reports in haste. The people of Earth listened in silence as they learned what had happened in the Grand Hall. Their envoy had carried a message of peace, but peace had been answered with violence. In that silence, something shifted. It was not fear. It was not hesitation. It was a rising fire, shared across cities, colonies, and fleets. For generations, humanity had prepared to defend itself against unknown threats. Now the unknown had shown itself, and humanity's answer was already forming. The galaxy had believed humans were new, fragile, and untested. Soon, the galaxy would learn what it meant when a united people chose not to forgive. This was the moment the stars would remember as the breaking of patience, the moment humanity's path changed forever. The chamber of the Galactic Assembly had never witnessed such disorder. Guards moved quickly, surrounding the fallen human envoy. Delegates shouted at one another, their voices overlapping in a storm of confusion. Some demanded the attacker be executed at once, others demanded the session be adjourned, and many tried to distance themselves from the crime as if silence would shield them from blame. The assassin stood restrained in heavy bonds, his weapon already destroyed by the guards. His face remained hidden behind a mask, but his posture carried no fear. Even with hundreds of eyes fixed on him, he stood with a strange calm, as if his act had already fulfilled its purpose. The human aides still in the hall gathered around Ryan's body. Their hands shook as they checked for signs of life. For a moment they hoped, but the truth arrived with painful clarity. Their envoy was gone. The one chosen to carry humanity's first words of peace among the stars would never speak again. The Supreme Speaker called for order, but the command fell flat. The assembly, once a place of steady debates, had dissolved into a theater of accusation and unease. Delegates from older races whispered that humans were too emotional, too young to understand the burdens of galactic politics. Some insisted that the assembly itself could not be blamed. Others spoke of patience, urging humanity to forgive and not let anger cloud judgment. To the human aides, these words cut deeply. Their leader had been struck down in the most protected chamber in the galaxy, and already the assembly seemed more concerned with appearances than with justice. One human aide, a woman named Lyra, rose to speak. Her voice was clear though her heart was heavy. This hall was promised to be sacred. This hall was promised to be safe. Yet our envoy lies silent. If this is what the assembly calls safety, then Earth must ask what truth lies behind these walls. Her words sent a ripple of discomfort through the delegates. Some bowed their heads, unwilling to meet her gaze. Others frowned, dismissing her as a grieving assistant rather than a voice of reason. The speaker gave no direct reply, only repeating the call for calm. Behind closed doors, the assembly moved quickly to shape the story. Official records would describe the act as the work of a lone agent. No mention would be made of who had sent him or why. They spoke of avoiding panic, of protecting the stability of the council. But hidden within these discussions was another thought: if humanity grew too angry, they might upset the balance of the stars. While the assembly crafted their reports, the human delegation made their own preparations. The body of Ryan was returned under heavy guard, escorted by human ships back toward Earth. Alongside his body traveled the recordings of the attack, proof that the envoy had entered unarmed and left only in silence. When the message reached Earth, it was played across every channel. People in cities, on colonies, and in orbiting stations watched as their envoy walked with hope into the Great Hall, only to fall moments later. The image of his final step burned into memory, a wound shared by all. The response was swift. Crowds filled the streets not with cries of despair, but with unity. Workers left factories only to return with new determination, demanding the machines be turned toward shipbuilding. Families sent their sons and daughters to enlist, not out of fear, but out of a common belief that humanity must now stand for itself. On the floor of the United Earth Council, leaders debated through the night. Some urged caution, warning that humanity was still young compared to the ancient powers. But the majority felt the same fire as the people. They spoke of dignity, of honor, of the price of silence. In the end, one decision carried the weight of all. Humanity would not retreat. Humanity would not forgive. The envoy had carried peace, and peace had been answered with betrayal. From this moment, restraint would no longer guide Earth's hand. As fleets prepared, the assembly continued to speak of patience, still hoping the humans would calm. Yet whispers spread through the halls of the council. Many species had once underestimated humans, believing their short lives and restless nature made them weak. Now they wondered if those same traits would make them unstoppable when driven by loss. Back in the chamber where the act began, the seat prepared for humanity stood empty. It was meant to be a place of dialogue, a symbol of cooperation. Instead, it had become a reminder of the strike that would change the course of the galaxy. The assassin who had carried out the act remained silent in his cell, refusing to answer questions, refusing even to give his name. The assembly called him a criminal, a lone actor. But deep within the hidden currents of galactic politics, many knew the truth was not so simple. No assassin acted alone in such a hall, not without the support of shadows moving behind the scenes. For now, those shadows remained hidden. But soon they would face the light, for humanity's answer was already moving. Across the stars, ships left their docks, soldiers prepared, and the fire of Earth began to burn brighter than ever before. The galaxy had seen the strike of an assassin. Next, it would see the strike of an entire people. The funeral of Ryan, the fallen human envoy, was held under the skies of Earth. The gathering was not only of family and friends but of entire nations. Millions stood in silence as his body was laid to rest. Screens across every colony and station broadcasted the ceremony. The man who had carried humanity's first words of peace into the Galactic Assembly was now a symbol of betrayal and loss. But grief was not the only emotion felt that day. In the quiet eyes of the people, there was also a spark of resolve. Ryan's death had touched something deep within the human spirit. His mission had been peace, yet peace had been denied in the cruelest way. Now humanity faced a choice that would shape its future forever. Within the chambers of the United Earth Council, the leaders spoke with urgency. The hall was filled with tension as arguments rose and fell. Some called for restraint, insisting that humans must wait until the true identity of the assassin's masters was known. They feared that a quick strike might draw the anger of civilizations far older and larger. Yet others stood firmly against this. They reminded the council that the assembly had shown little concern for justice. They had rushed to call the assassin a lone actor, closing their ears to any deeper truth. They had urged humanity to forgive before even asking forgiveness themselves. Such behavior was not the mark of allies. Councillor Varon, one of the elder statesmen, spoke with a voice that carried across the chamber. We have walked carefully for decades, hoping to earn trust among the stars. But what has that caution given us? An envoy struck down before he could finish his first words. If we remain silent now, then silence will be the only voice Earth is ever allowed. We must act. Not with hesitation. Not with half measures. With unity and strength. The chamber erupted with applause. The decision was sealed not by anger alone but by the clear memory of what had been lost. Humanity would no longer wait for approval. Humanity would no longer bow to the traditions of others. Across the world, preparations began. Shipyards that once built vessels for trade and exploration shifted their efforts toward fleets of war. Engineers who had studied peaceful designs now turned their knowledge to weapons of defense and power. Soldiers who had once trained for local conflicts found themselves part of a force ready to fight among the stars. The call for unity was answered everywhere. Colonies on distant moons pledged their resources. Orbital stations offered their ships. Farmers on Earth gave supplies, and scientists in hidden labs opened projects that had once been locked away. Humanity moved as one body, guided by one will. While Earth prepared, the galaxy watched with unease. Reports from the assembly spread quickly. Many species whispered that humans were dangerous, too quick to anger. Others warned their leaders that humanity was not to be underestimated. Unlike older races, humans were not divided into rival empires or endless councils. They were many nations, yes, but when threatened, they stood together in a way that frightened the stars. The assembly itself tried to calm the rising storm. The speaker sent messages to Earth, urging diplomacy, promising an investigation, and offering apologies. But each message carried the same tone, a careful distance, as if the assembly feared angering whoever had truly sent the assassin. On Earth, those messages were read and then set aside. Too many promises had already been broken. Too many excuses had been given. The leaders of Earth no longer placed trust in words alone. Only action would be enough now. Still, humanity's move was not made from blind rage. Behind every fleet, behind every soldier, there was a single guiding thought. If one envoy could be struck down without consequence, then every human life across the stars was at risk. To protect the future, they could no longer remain patient. The turning point came when the Council of Earth announced their declaration. The statement was simple, carried across every human channel and sent openly into the void where all could hear. To the stars, we say this: we came in peace, and peace was answered with betrayal. We will not hide. We will not wait. We will not forget. From this day forward, humanity acts without restraint. We will defend ourselves, and we will not bow. The words reached every corner of human space. Cheers rose from cities, colonies, and fleets. For the first time in history, humanity was united not by fear or by survival, but by a shared resolve to shape its own destiny. Far away, in the hidden places of the galaxy, the message reached other ears. The shadowed powers that had ordered the assassin listened closely. They had hoped humans would retreat, as many young races had before. But the fire of Earth burned differently. Instead of retreat, they saw the rise of determination. Instead of silence, they heard the sound of defiance. The assassin's strike had not broken humanity. It had forged them. This was the turning point. From this moment, the galaxy would never again see humans as harmless newcomers. They would see them as something far more dangerous, an unbroken people who refused to kneel. And so the stars waited, knowing that the next move would belong to Earth. The decision had been made. Humanity would no longer wait for permission, no longer accept excuses, and no longer trust in the promises of the assembly. The death of Ryan had changed everything. Now the time of patience was over, and the time of action had begun. The first response came not with speeches, but with movement. From Earth and its colonies, fleets of ships rose into the black sky. Many of these ships had once been designed for trade, science, or transport. Now they were fitted with weapons, armor, and shields. Where once they had carried supplies, now they carried soldiers. Where once they had mapped the stars, now they carried the fire of Earth. The galaxy had expected humans to hesitate, to spend years debating, to move slowly as many civilizations did. But humans were different. Within weeks, fleets that should have taken years to assemble were already in motion. The speed shocked the stars. No one had imagined that humanity's industry and unity could turn so quickly from peace to war. The first targets were not random. The United Earth Council had traced whispers about the assassin's path. Certain systems had looked the other way when he passed. Certain trade routes had been left strangely unguarded. There were worlds that might not have ordered the strike, but they had welcomed the shadows that carried it. Human fleets struck with precision. They did not come with warnings, nor did they wait for long talks. They arrived at starports and seized control. They disabled defense grids with clever electronic attacks. They shut down communication lines before the enemy could even call for help. Then they sent a message: Earth remembers. One such strike took place in the Halrose system. The ruling council there had claimed neutrality in the assembly, but evidence showed their silence had protected the assassin's escape route. When human ships appeared above their world, the locals prepared for a slow siege. Instead, they were overwhelmed within hours. Human drones swarmed like a living storm, cutting through old defenses. The system surrendered before a single day had passed. News of this victory traveled fast. Some species were shocked at the speed and discipline of the humans. Others were frightened, realizing that Earth had no intention of waiting for approval. The assembly held emergency meetings, but their words meant little compared to the sight of human fleets moving across the stars. Yet even in these first strikes, humanity showed a pattern. They did not destroy entire worlds, nor did they seek to erase innocent lives. Their attacks were sharp and focused, aimed only at those who had aided betrayal. Civilian ships were allowed to flee. Medical stations were left untouched. The message was clear: humanity was not cruel, but they would not be ignored. Among the older civilizations, debates grew louder. Some argued that humans were reckless and must be stopped. Others pointed out that the assembly itself had failed to protect them, and now they were simply defending their honor. A few even admitted quietly that humanity's unity was something to admire. Back on Earth, every victory added strength to the people's resolve. Crowds gathered around screens to watch returning fleets. Families wept with pride as they saw their sons and daughters standing tall in uniform. Factories increased production, not by force, but by the will of workers who believed in the cause. The assembly continued to send messages of caution, begging Earth to slow down. But their voices grew weaker with each passing day. For the first time in generations, the older powers felt the ground shift beneath them. The balance of the galaxy was changing, and it was changing fast. In the midst of these first strikes, the Human Council received new intelligence. Hidden within the Assembly's own records was a trail that hinted at something greater. The assassin had not been alone. He had not acted for himself. There were hands guiding him, hands that had shaped similar acts in the past. Entire young civilizations had been struck down before they could rise, each time blamed on lone actors. Humanity was only the latest to face such a test. This revelation spread quietly among human commanders. It added fuel to their determination. They now knew the truth: the assassination had not been a random act of violence. It was part of a pattern, a design meant to keep young species weak and dependent. The first response, then, was not only for revenge. It was for warning. Humanity would not be the next victim of hidden powers. Humanity would not vanish into history like the forgotten races before them. As the fleets returned from their first victories, Commander Darren, one of the leading officers, stood before his soldiers. His words echoed across the ships. "We were struck because others thought us weak. Today we prove them wrong. Tomorrow we prove that Earth will not be erased. We are not here to beg for safety. We are here to make it." The soldiers cheered, their voices carrying through the halls of steel. Outside the windows, stars glimmered like endless battlegrounds waiting to be claimed. The galaxy had seen the assassins strike. The galaxy had seen the assembly's silence. Now the galaxy was seeing something far greater: the first response of humanity. It was fast. It was strong. And it was only the beginning. The human fleets had moved with speed that stunned the stars. In only a few weeks, they had struck at systems that had sheltered shadows, seized control of trade routes, and shown the galaxy that Earth was no longer a silent newcomer. What followed was a wave of reaction across the assembly and beyond. On distant worlds, news of human victories spread like fire. Some species watched with quiet admiration. They had long lived under the weight of ancient powers, afraid to act against injustice. Now they saw humanity refusing to bow. For them, the actions of Earth carried a strange kind of hope. Perhaps the galaxy did not have to remain under the control of hidden hands. But not all viewed humanity with hope. Among the elder civilizations, fear grew quickly. They had ruled through councils and treaties for centuries, believing their slow ways could manage every crisis. Humanity's unity and speed broke that illusion. The older powers whispered among themselves, asking how a young species could act with such strength. Some warned that if Earth continued unchecked, they might grow into a force no council could contain. The assembly itself became a place of heated arguments. Delegates who once dismissed humans as children now spoke with alarm. Some demanded that sanctions be placed on Earth, forbidding trade and travel. Others argued that such moves would only fuel more conflict. A few even suggested that humanity be invited back into the assembly to restore peace, though their voices were drowned out by fear. Meanwhile, the Shadow Empire hidden within the assembly remained silent. They had guided the assassin's hand, expecting humans to crumble as others had before. Instead, they now faced a species that had turned grief into resolve. Their networks watched carefully, uncertain whether to strike again or to wait. For the first time in centuries, their plan had not gone as expected. On neutral stations far from Earth, travelers and traders debated in every hall. Stories of human soldiers filled the air. Some told of fleets that moved like storms, overwhelming defenses with clever tactics. Others spoke of mercy, of how humans spared civilians and protected the weak even as they struck at their enemies. These stories painted a picture of a people both fierce and disciplined. One trader from the Kalari species summed up the thought many were beginning to share. The humans are not fighting only for revenge. They are fighting to show the galaxy that no one will ever silence them again. Back on Earth, the people continued to stand behind their fleets. Cities glowed with factories working day and night. Spaceports launched ship after ship, filling the skies with the hum of engines. Yet despite the weight of war, there was no despair. Instead, there was unity. Families wrote letters to soldiers, Children drew pictures of ships and stars, and communities supported one another with determination. Humanity had faced struggle before on their home world, but never had they faced it as one people. Among the colonies, there was a sense of pride as well. For the first time, colonists felt fully tied to Earth, not as distant outposts but as part of the same united cause. They gave supplies freely, offered their own young as recruits, and pledged loyalty not out of law but out of shared belief. The galaxy, however, grew more uneasy with each passing day. The Assembly feared that humanity's rise would spark open war across many empires. Old rivalries that had been held in balance for centuries now felt fragile. Some leaders secretly admired the humans but dared not say so aloud. Others plotted ways to stop them, though no plan seemed strong enough against such unity. As all eyes turned to Earth, humanity's leaders met once more in their council chambers. They reviewed reports of victories and discussed the risks ahead. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew fear was rising. But instead of slowing, they chose to move with even greater purpose. Councillor Varen spoke again, his words steady. The galaxy reacts because they see us as a storm. But we are not only a storm. We are a people who have learned to stand together. Let them fear us if they must. Let them admire us if they choose. What matters is that we will never again stand silent. The council agreed. Humanity would not retreat. Their course was set, and the galaxy's reaction only proved that Earth's presence could no longer be ignored. In the weeks that followed, emissaries from smaller civilizations reached out to Earth in secret. They sent messages of friendship, offers of trade, and requests for protection. They had watched humanity's rise and saw in it a chance for a new future. For the first time, humans found allies not through the assembly but through action. And so the galaxy reacted in many ways: fear, admiration, anger, and hope. But beneath it all was one truth no one could deny. Humanity had declared war without restraint, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Humanity's fleets had moved fast and struck hard, but the leaders of Earth knew their fight had only just begun. The first responses had been about revenge and warning, but now the truth of the threat became clear. The assassin had not acted alone, and the danger extended far beyond the shadows that had struck Ryan. Commander Darren received the first report from intelligence units operating deep inside assembly networks. "Sir," said a young analyst, her voice steady but urgent, "we have traced communications from the assassin. The messages do not come from one world or one council. They come from a hidden power within the assembly itself. There is a group that has guided attacks on young species for centuries." Darren studied the data, his eyes narrowing. "Centuries?" he asked. "How many civilizations?" "Too many to count," the analyst replied. "They move quietly. They remove rising powers before they can challenge the council. Humans are just the latest target. They were never supposed to rise as quickly as they did." The council chambers of Earth went silent as the revelation sank in. Humanity had believed the assembly was the central power of the galaxy, but now they realized a hidden empire had been manipulating events for centuries. The assassin had been only one tool in a long plan. Councillor Varen spoke first, his voice calm but firm. "We were attacked because they feared us. They have acted against every young civilization that showed promise. Now they see that humans cannot be controlled or silenced. We must face them not only as a threat but as the true enemy hiding behind false authority." The room erupted with discussion. Some argued that humans should focus on revenge for the death of Ryan and strike only at those systems that had assisted the assassin. Others said that now humanity must act boldly, uncover the hidden power, and ensure that no other species would suffer as humans had. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would hunt the shadows wherever they hid. They would strike at the networks that had guided assassins for centuries. They would uncover the empire that had sought to control the galaxy. Humanity had learned that war without restraint meant not only defending themselves but ending the threat before it could rise again. On the first missions, human intelligence units worked quickly. They infiltrated hidden communication channels, intercepted secret messages, and traced the patterns of past attacks. Every detail pointed to the same conclusion. The empire was organized, careful, and patient. They had waited for decades, confident that the assembly would protect their secrecy. Humanity had shattered that confidence. Meanwhile, the fleets of Earth continued their advance. They did not attack blindly. Each strike was guided by intelligence, precision, and strategy. Worlds that had sheltered the shadows were warned. Some surrendered immediately, choosing survival over secrecy. Others resisted and found themselves outmatched. The human approach was methodical, showing that their power was not only in numbers or speed but in discipline and planning. Far from Earth, the Shadow Empire began to realize the scale of the challenge. Their agents had underestimated humanity. They had thought humans would panic, hesitate, or fracture under pressure. Instead, humans acted as one, uniting planets, colonies, and fleets in a single purpose. The hidden power had never faced a species so fast, so disciplined, and so determined. Back on Earth, the Council met to review new intelligence. Every report confirmed the same pattern. Humanity's enemy had operated through secrecy, corruption, and manipulation. The goal had always been the same: prevent any young species from rising. But now the hunter had become the hunted. Humanity had turned the tables. Commander Darren addressed the fleet. "We have learned who our enemy is. They hide behind councils, they strike in silence, and they think no one sees them. But we do see them. Every plan they make is tracked, every move they make is watched. They will not strike at Earth again without facing the full strength of our people." The soldiers cheered, their voices echoing through the command halls. They understood the task was greater than any battle before, but they also understood that humanity's resolve was stronger than fear. They were fighting not only for revenge, not only for Ryan, but for the future of every species that could rise among the stars. In the hidden corners of the assembly, whispers of fear began to spread. The Shadow Empire, so long untouchable, now realized that humanity had uncovered their presence. They moved quickly, trying to cover their tracks, but Earth had already traced too many threads. The Empire could hide, but it could not escape. Humanity had learned the true nature of the enemy. They had learned that the galaxy's dangers were not only obvious and open but also secret and hidden. And now they had the power, the unity, and the determination to confront it. The first moves had been successful. The assassin had been revealed as a small part of a much larger threat. Now humanity prepared to confront the full scale of the Shadow Empire. The galaxy was about to witness a force unlike any it had ever seen, a united species that would not stop until the hidden enemy had been exposed and defeated. The true enemy had been revealed. Humanity would not pause. Humanity would not forgive. Humanity would not fail. The fleets of humanity had gathered above the central world of the assembly. Stars stretched endlessly around them, but the humans saw not emptiness but the stage for the final confrontation. Months of preparation, strategy, and intelligence had led to this moment. They now faced the hidden empire that had struck Ryan, hidden within the assembly for centuries. Commander Darren stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking out over the mass of ships. Each vessel carried soldiers, drones, and weapons designed not only to fight but to protect. Every system, every fleet, and every colony had contributed. Humanity's resolve had grown stronger with each day, and now it burned brighter than any star. The enemy thought they could strike in silence, Darren said to Counselor Varen, who stood beside him. They thought we would hesitate, that we would bow, that we would forget. They were wrong. Today, we show them what it means to challenge humanity. Varen nodded. Not only to challenge us, but to see that the galaxy cannot allow shadow powers to rule through fear. This is not only our war. It is the future of every species that dreams of freedom and safety. The first transmissions were sent across the assembly. Every delegate received the same message. It was simple, clear, and direct. Humanity was invited to peace. Peace was answered with betrayal. We have acted with restraint only long enough to identify the true enemy. The assassin was a tool, the assembly's silence was the shield, and the hidden empire was the plan. Today, that empire faces justice. Today, humanity declares its presence, its strength, and its resolve to the galaxy. The age of silence is over. The age of fear is over. Humanity stands, and those who threaten life and freedom will fall. The message spread across the stars. Ships in distant systems paused to listen. Some were allies who sent greetings of support. Some were rivals who wondered if their own hesitation had placed them in danger. Many species whispered that humans were no longer a force to test lightly. On the central world of the assembly, the hidden empire scrambled to hide. Communications were cut. Agents moved quickly, but humanity had anticipated every move. Satellites and drones monitored every channel, leaving no space for escape. The empire could strike no longer without being exposed. Their power, so carefully concealed for centuries, now trembled under the united will of Earth. Human fleets descended toward the heart of the assembly's central systems. They did not destroy without cause, but they dismantled control points, isolated leaders of the hidden empire, and captured key installations. Humanity had learned the enemy's methods. They had turned the shadows into targets, striking with precision and force. The assembly itself trembled under the speed of human action. Councils that had once seemed unshakable now realized the full weight of what they had underestimated. Humanity was not reckless. Humanity was not new. Humanity was united, disciplined, and unstoppable when faced with injustice. Commander Darren addressed the assembled leaders of the hidden empire through a secure channel. His voice was calm but carried the authority of Earth itself. You have hidden in silence, believing the young cannot rise. You have struck at others and thought it would go unnoticed. You have tested humanity and failed. Today, your control ends. Today, your actions are revealed. You will answer for every life you sought to silence. The response was silence. The empire had no words that could match the force of humanity's resolve. Their networks were exposed, their plans unraveling, and their influence crumbling. For the first time in centuries, they realized they could not strike in darkness. Back on Earth, millions watched the transmissions from the fleets. The victory was not just for the soldiers in space but for every human who had supported the effort, every child who had dreamed of the stars, and every family who had waited for justice. The human race had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. They had declared their strength, and the galaxy now understood it. Counselor Varen spoke during the final broadcast. Humanity acts not out of cruelty, not out of anger, but out of necessity. We will protect ourselves. We will protect the young. We will show that the future belongs to those who choose courage over fear. Let this be the final declaration: the galaxy will never forget humanity, and those who threaten life, justice, and peace will face the consequences. In that moment, the stars seemed to hold their breath. For centuries, the assembly had ruled quietly, the shadows guiding fate. Now, a new force had risen. Humanity had declared war without restraint. Humanity had faced the true enemy and emerged victorious. The galaxy had witnessed the birth of a people no longer willing to kneel, a species that would shape the stars not through fear, but through courage, unity, and unbroken resolve. The era of silence and shadow was over. Humanity stood, proud and unyielding, ready to lead and defend in a galaxy that would never again underestimate the strength of a united people.